I gave her $220,000. I trusted her with my retirement dream. We were going to build something together, a beach bar, a life, a future. But the day I signed those papers, the day I made her co-owner, everything changed. She stopped answering my calls. She changed the locks. And when I finally saw her again, she wasn't alone. I thought I was investing in love. I was just paying for my own replacement. I'm standing on the beach in Panglao, Bohol, and the sunset is painting everything gold and orange. Clarinda is beside me, her hand in mine, and she's pointing at this empty lot right on the beachfront. She says, "This could be ours, Leonard. Can you imagine it? A bar right here. Tables on the sand. Music. Lights strung up in the trees." I look at her and I see this light in her eyes, this excitement, and I feel something I haven't felt in years. Hope. She squeezes my hand and says, "Our bar. Our dream." I'm 65 years old and I never thought I'd feel this alive again. Back in Markham, my life was frozen. Cold winters, a colder divorce that left me empty, and kids who barely called unless they needed something. But here, with her, I feel like I'm 40 again. She's 30, beautiful in a way that makes me forget my age, and somehow she sees something in me. That's what she told me 6 months ago when we first started talking online. She said, "I love older men. They know how to treat a woman right. They're not boys anymore." I believed her. Maybe I needed to. I asked her, "You really think we could do this?" She turns to me with this smile that makes my chest tight and says, "With you, I can do anything." We met on one of those international dating sites. I wasn't even looking. Not really. My buddy Rob set up the profile as a joke after a few too many beers. He said, "You're rotting away in that house, Terry. You need to live a little." I scrolled through messages for weeks, mostly bots or women asking for money right away. Then Clarinda messaged me. Her profile said she was from Cebu, worked in a small cafe, loved the beach and old movies. She wrote, "Hi, Leonard. Your profile says you worked in telecommunications. That sounds interesting. What was it like? No asking for money, no flirting, just a real question." We talked for 3 months before I ever saw her face on video. She was patient with me learning how to use the camera on my laptop. She laughed at my jokes. She asked about my kids, my work, my life. She told me about growing up in Cebu, about losing her father when she was young, about working hard to help her mother. She said, "I want to build something of my own someday, something that lasts." When I finally flew to the Philippines to meet her, she picked me up at the airport with a handmade sign that said, "Welcome home, Leonard." I almost cried right there. No one had made me feel welcome anywhere in years. Now she's talking about the bar again, walking along the beach, measuring out spaces with her steps. She says, "The bar here, tables there, maybe a small kitchen in the back." I watch her and I think this woman has vision. She has dreams, and she wants to build them with me. She stops walking and looks at me serious. She says, "Leonard, I know this is fast, but I feel like I've known you forever. Do you feel it too?" I nod because I do. I feel it so much it scares me. She steps closer and says, "I want to build a life with you. Not just a bar, a real life. Is that crazy?" I tell her, "No, it's not crazy at all." She kisses me and the sun is setting and I think this is what happiness feels like. This is what I've been missing. That night in my hotel room I can't sleep. I'm thinking about the bar, about her, about actually doing this. My phone buzzes. It's my son back in Canada. He sent a short text. "Dad, heard you're in the Philippines again. Just be careful, okay?" I don't reply. He doesn't understand. None of them do. They think I'm having some kind of crisis. But this isn't a crisis. This is me finally living. 3 weeks later, I'm back in Canada, and Clarinda video calls me every night. One night she seems nervous. She says, "Leonard, I've been thinking about the bar. I did some research." My heart jumps. She continues, "I looked into costs, licenses, everything. I think we could really do this. She shares her screen and there's a whole document: rental costs for beachfront property, liquor license fees, renovation estimates, staff wages, marketing ideas. I'm looking at spreadsheets and photos of other beach bars and revenue projections. She's done real work on this. She says, I know you probably think I'm just dreaming, but look, if we pool our resources, if we work together, this could actually work. I have connections here. I know people who can help with permits and construction. You have the capital. We could be partners. I feel my hand shaking a little as I look at the numbers. She's put $80,000 as the initial investment needed. That's a lot of money, but it's not impossible. I have my retirement savings. I have the money from selling the house after the divorce. She sees me hesitating and says, I'm sorry. This is too much. I'm asking too much. Forget I said anything. She starts to close the document, but I say, wait. Don't close it. Let me look. I spend the next hour going through every page. She's thought of everything: insurance, health permits, waste management, suppliers for alcohol and food. She's even sketched out a menu. I say, Clarinda, this is incredible. You did all this yourself? She nods, and I can see she's holding back tears. She says, I wanted to show you I'm serious, that this isn't just some fantasy. I want to build something real with you, Leonard. Something that's ours. The way she says ours makes my chest feel warm. I tell her, let me think about it. Give me a few days. She smiles and says, of course, no pressure. I just wanted you to see that I believe in us. That night I can't sleep again. I'm looking at my bank account. The money is there, sitting, doing nothing. My ex-wife got half of everything, but I still have enough. Enough to take this chance, enough to build something. I call Rob the next morning. He picks up and says, let me guess, the girl wants money. I tell him about the business plan, the bar, the partnership. He's quiet for a long time. Then he says, Terry, I'm going to be straight with you. This sounds like a scam. I feel my face get hot. I say, you haven't even met her. You don't know her like I do. He sighs and says, I know you're lonely, buddy. I know the divorce was hard. But $80,000? That's a lot of money to trust someone you've known for 6 months. I tell him, it's an investment, Rob, in our future. He says, just be careful, okay? Get a lawyer to look at any papers before you sign anything. I say I will, but I'm already annoyed. Rob doesn't understand. None of them do. I wire the $80,000 3 days later. I don't tell Rob. I don't tell my kids. I just do it. When Clarinda sees the transfer confirmation, she starts crying on the video call. She says, Leonard, I can't believe you did this. No one has ever believed in me like this, ever. She's sobbing, and I feel like a hero. I feel like I've done something that matters. She wipes her tears and says, I promise you, I will make this worth it. I will work so hard. We are going to build something beautiful together. Over the next 2 months, she sends me photos every day. Photos of the lot being cleared, the foundation being poured, the frame going up. She's there in every photo, wearing a hard hat, directing workers covered in dust. She video calls me from the construction site and says, look at this. The bar is taking shape. I can see it. I can actually see our dream becoming real. My daughter calls me one night. She's heard about the money from her brother. She says, Dad, what are you doing? You barely know this woman. I tell her, I know her enough, and I'm investing in something real. She says, you're investing in a stranger in a foreign country. This is insane. I tell her she wouldn't understand, and I hang up. Why can't they just be happy for me? Why does everyone think I'm being stupid? 2 months in, and Clarinda calls me excited. She says, Leonard, the construction is going faster than we thought, but we need to talk about the next phase. My stomach tightens a little. She continues, we need to register the business officially, make it legal, and we need to start ordering furniture, kitchen equipment, the bar itself, initial inventory of alcohol and food. I got quotes for everything. She shares another document. This one shows $60,000 needed for the next phase. I stare at the number. That's more than I thought. She sees my face and says, I know it's a lot, but this is what it takes to do it right, to make it a real business. We're so close, Leonard. We can't stop now, I say. That's a lot of money, Clarinda. She nods and says, I know. I've been trying to figure out how to contribute more myself. I've been saving every peso I can. But I'm still short. If you can cover this, I promise I'll pay you back once we start making money. I feel this small doubt creeping in. First $80,000, now another $60,000. That's $140,000 total. She must see it on my face because she says, Do you not trust me? After everything we've built together? Her voice breaks a little. I say, No, it's not that. I need to think about it. She goes quiet and then says, I understand. I thought we were partners. I thought we were in this together, but maybe I was wrong. That night, she doesn't call. She doesn't message. I feel sick to my stomach. The next morning, I try calling her. No answer. I send messages. Nothing. Finally, hours later, she responds with just text. I'm scared, Leonard. Scared that you don't trust me. Scared that I've given you everything and you're going to walk away when it matters most. I call her immediately. She answers, but she's been crying. She says, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. You don't owe me anything. I'll figure it out myself somehow. I feel this panic rising in my chest. I say, No, Clarinda, wait. I do trust you. I do. I was just surprised by the amount. She sniffles and says, The construction workers need to be paid. The suppliers need deposits. If we don't move forward now, we'll lose everything we've invested. The landlord is getting impatient. I close my eyes and I think about walking away now, losing the $80,000 and having nothing to show for it, or investing more and actually seeing this through. I say, Okay, I'll wire the money tomorrow. She gasps and says, Really? Leonard, are you sure? I tell her I'm sure. She starts crying again, but this time she's saying thank you over and over. She says, I love you. I love you so much. We're going to make this work. I promise you. When I hang up, I sit there for a long time. Did she just say she loves me? That's the first time. I wire the $60,000 the next day. Rob calls me that afternoon. Somehow he's found out. He says, Terry, what the hell are you doing? That's $140,000 now. Do you even have a contract? Do you have any legal protection? I tell him I trust her. He says, Trust isn't a contract, buddy. Please get a lawyer involved before you send any more money. I tell him there won't be any more money. This is it. He doesn't sound convinced. I fly back to the Philippines a month later. The bar is almost finished. When I see it for the first time complete, I actually start tearing up. It's beautiful. Exactly like I imagined. The sign out front says Sunset Dreams Bar and Grill in perfect letters. Clarinda runs to me and jumps into my arms. She says, Do you love it? Do you love it? I tell her it's perfect. She takes my hand and walks me through every detail. The bar made from reclaimed wood, the tables and chairs, the lights strung up in the trees, the small kitchen, the bathrooms. Everything is done with care. She says, This is ours, Leonard. We built this together. That night we celebrate with a bottle of champagne sitting at the bar. She's glowing. She says, There's one more thing we need to do. We need to register the business officially. Make it legal. Put both our names on it. I nod and say, Of course. Partners, right? She smiles and says, 50-50. Equal partners. The next day she takes me to a lawyer's office in Tagbilaran. The lawyer's name is Addy Marasigan. He's probably in his 52nds, efficient-looking, barely looks at me when we shake hands. Clarinda and him talk in Tagalog for a while. Fast. I catch a few words, but mostly I'm lost. Finally, the lawyer switches to English and says, So you want to register a business partnership, bar and restaurant, beachfront location. I nod. He slides papers across the desk, page after page of legal documents. All in English, but the legal language makes my head spin. He explains some parts: corporation registration, tax identification, business permits. Then he gets to ownership structure. He says something about foreign investment limits and Filipino partnership requirements. Clarinda squeezes my hand and says, "It's just legal stuff, baby. Standard for any business here." The lawyer points to signature lines. So many signature lines. I start to ask a question, but Clarinda leans in and kisses my cheek and whispers, "I'm so proud of us." I sign. Every page, every line where there's an X. The lawyer barely makes eye contact with me the entire time. He looks at Clarinda more. She signs too. When it's done, the lawyer stamps everything and says something in Tagalog to Clarinda. She smiles. We leave the office and she's holding the papers like they're precious. She says, "We're official now, real business owners." That night in the hotel, she seems different. Distracted. I ask if she's okay and she says, "I'm just thinking about everything we still need to do. The opening, marketing, hiring staff." Then she turns to me and says, "Leonard, there's one more thing. I didn't want to bring it up, but the initial inventory is more expensive than I thought, and we need to hire at least 3 staff members before we open. I've been running the numbers and we need about $40,000 more to do this right." I feel like I've been punched. I say, "Another $40,000? She nods and says, I know it's more than we planned, but this is the last push. After this, we'll be making money. We won't need any more investment." I stand up and walk to the window. I'm looking at the lights of Tagbilaran, and I'm doing math in my head. $80,000 plus $60,000 plus $40,000. That's $180,000. Almost everything I have left. She comes up behind me and wraps her arms around me. She says, "I wouldn't ask if it wasn't necessary. You know that, right?" I close my eyes. Something feels off, but I can't pinpoint what it is. I say, "Let me think about it." She pulls away and her voice gets cold. She says, "Think about what? Whether you trust me? Whether this is worth it?" I turn around and say, "It's not about trust. It's about being smart with money." She laughs, but it's not a happy laugh. She says, "Being smart? We've come this far. You're going to back out now when we're so close?" I feel this guilt rising up. She continues, "I thought we were in this together, Leonard. I thought we were building a future, but maybe I was wrong. Maybe you just wanted to play businessman for a while, and now you're getting cold feet." I reach for her and say, "That's not fair." She steps back and says, "What's not fair is me working day and night on our dream while you sit in Canada doubting me." We don't talk the rest of the night. The silence is terrible. The next morning she's already up when I wake. She's on her laptop. She doesn't look at me. I say, "Clarinda, I'm sorry about last night." She just nods. I sit down next to her and say, "I'll do it. I'll wire the money." She finally looks at me and her eyes are red. She says, "Are you sure? I don't want you to do it if you don't believe in us anymore." I take her hand and say, "I believe in us." "I do." She leans her head on my shoulder and says, "This is the last time. I promise. After this, we'll be making money. No more asking." I wire $40,000 that afternoon. We're at $180,000 now. Almost everything I have. Rob texts me that night. "I heard you sent more money. Please tell me you at least have legal documents protecting you." I don't respond. 2 weeks later, I'm back in Canada. We need to settle some banking issues, transfer some more funds to make things easier, sort out my taxes. Clarinda says she'll handle the soft opening of the bar while I'm gone. She says, "Don't worry, baby. I'll take care of everything. You just handle things there and then come back for the grand opening." I trust her. I do. Then 3 days later, I'm scrolling through Facebook and I see photos. Lots of photos. The bar is packed with people. There's a ribbon-cutting ceremony. Local officials are there. There's a small band playing. Clarinda is front and center, holding a microphone, smiling bigger than I've ever seen her smile. I scroll through dozens of photos, the crowd, the decorations, the food, the drinks, and I'm not in a single photo, not one. My hands start shaking as I read the captions. Grand opening of Sunset Dreams Bar and Grill. Come celebrate with us. Best beach bar in Panglao. Not one mention of my name, not one mention of a partner. Just Clarinda's name over and over. Congratulations, Clarinda. So proud of you, Clarinda. Your dream came true, Clarinda. I call her immediately. It rings 4 times before she answers. Her voice sounds annoyed. She says, "Hello?" I say, "What happened?" You said soft opening. These photos look like a grand opening. She sighs and says, "It was supposed to be soft opening, but things just came together. I didn't want to bother you. You were busy with your banking stuff." I'm trying to keep my voice steady. I say, "Clarinda, I'm not in any of the photos. I'm not mentioned anywhere." She's quiet for a second, then says, "What do you want me to do, Leonard? Post photos of someone who isn't even here? The community wanted to celebrate. The mayor's office sent someone. Was I supposed to tell them to wait?" Her tone is so different from before, so cold. I say, "I'm your partner. This is our business, our dream. Remember?" She laughs a little and says, "Of course I remember. Why are you being so sensitive about some Facebook photos?" I feel this tightness in my chest. I say, "When can I come back? I want to be there. I want to help run things." She's quiet again. Then she says, "Things are really busy right now, Leonard. I'm figuring out the operations, training staff, dealing with suppliers. Maybe give it another week or 2. I say, "A week or 2? I'm the co-owner. I should be there." Her voice gets sharp. She says, "And you will be. But right now the bar needs my full attention, and I can't be distracted." Distracted. She just called me a distraction. I say, "So when should I come back?" She says, "I'll let you know, okay? I have to go. There's customers." She hangs up before I can respond. I sit there staring at my phone. Rob calls an hour later. He's seen the photos too. His voice is gentle but firm. He says, "Terry, you see it now, right? You're not her partner. You're her investor. She got what she needed from you and now she's moving on." I want to argue, but I can't find the words. He continues, "You need to get back there immediately. You need to look at those legal documents. You need to figure out what you actually signed." I tell him I will. That night I book a flight back to Bohol. I don't tell Clarinda. I want to surprise her. I want to see the bar. I want to feel like I'm part of this again. The flight feels endless. I land in Cebu, take the ferry to Bohol, get a taxi to Panglao. When I finally pull up to Sunset Dreams, it's afternoon. The bar is open. There's people at the tables, music playing. It looks successful. It looks exactly like we dreamed. I walk up to the entrance and there's a young guy at the bar, maybe 25, cleaning glasses. I smile at him and say, "Hi, I'm Leonard." He looks at me politely but confused. He says, "Hello, sir. Welcome. What can I get you?" I say, "No, I'm Leonard, one of the owners." His face changes. Not recognition, just more confusion. He says, "Oh, you need to talk to the owner. She's not here right now." I feel my stomach drop. I say, "I am the owner, co-owner with Clarinda." He looks really uncomfortable now. He says, "I'm sorry, sir. I don't know about that. Clarinda is the owner. She's the one who hired me. Maybe you should call her?" I take out my phone with shaking hands. I try the door to the back office. It's locked. A different lock than before. I call Clarinda. No answer. I call again. No answer. I call a 3rd time and finally she picks up. Her voice is irritated. She says, "Leonard, what's going on? Why are you calling so much?" I say, "I'm at the bar. Where are you?" Long pause. Then she says, "You're here? In Bohol?" I say, "Yes. I came to see you. To see our bar." Another pause. Then her voice gets cold in a way I've never heard before. She says, You can't just show up unannounced like this, Leonard. That's disrespectful to me and the staff. I can't believe what I'm hearing. I say, disrespectful? I'm your partner. This is our business. She sighs like I'm being difficult. She says, we need to talk, but not at the bar. It's not appropriate. Meet me tomorrow morning. There's a cafe called Blue Horizon near the main road. 9 a.m. I start to protest, but she says, tomorrow, Leonard. I can't do this right now. Then she hangs up. I'm standing outside my own bar and I'm not allowed in. The young bartender is watching me through the window. I feel humiliated. I walk away and find a cheap hotel, not the nice resort we stayed at before. A basic place. I can't afford the nice places anymore. That night I don't sleep. I'm staring at the ceiling, replaying everything. Every conversation, every wire transfer, every time she cried, every time she said our future. What did I sign? What did I actually sign? I pull out my phone and try to find photos of the documents, but I never took any. Why didn't I take photos? I think about calling Rob, but I'm too ashamed. He warned me. Everyone warned me. And I called them jealous. I called them unsupportive. The night feels endless. At 7 a.m., I give up on sleep and take a cold shower. I get to Blue Horizon Cafe at 8:45. I order coffee. I don't drink. At 9:15, Clarinda walks in. She's dressed nice. Professional. Like she's going to a business meeting. Her hair is pulled back. She's wearing makeup, but not the soft kind she used to wear for me. This is business makeup. She sits down across from me without smiling. No kiss, no hug, nothing. She orders a coffee from the waiter without looking at me. Finally, she says, "You shouldn't have come without telling me." I lean forward and say, "What's going on, Clarinda? Why did the staff not know who I am? Why are the locks changed?" She stirs her coffee slowly. She says, "The bar is doing well, better than expected actually, but there's complications." I say, "What complications?" She looks at me then and her eyes are different. All the warmth is gone. She says, "You're complicating things, Leonard. Your presence is making the staff uncomfortable. The local community doesn't understand who you are or why you're here. It's confusing for everyone. I feel like I'm in a nightmare." I say, "I'm the co-owner. We built this together. We put our names on the papers together." She nods slowly and says, "About that." She reaches into her bag and pulls out a folder. The same documents from the lawyer's office. She opens it and points to sections. She says, "Did you actually read these before you signed them?" My throat is tight. I say, "The lawyer explained them." She smiles, but it's not kind. She says, "He explained them in English that you could understand. But according to Philippine law, because you're a foreign investor, there are restrictions. You can't own more than 40% of a business here. The majority ownership and operational control goes to the Filipino partner." She taps the paper. That's me. I grab the documents and try to read them, but the words are swimming. She continues, "I'm the majority operational owner. I make the decisions. I control the business. You're an investor, Leonard. A minority investor with limited rights." My hands are shaking so hard the papers are rattling. I say, "But you said 50 to 50. You said equal partners." She shrugs like it doesn't matter. She says, "I said a lot of things. The legal reality is different." I feel like I'm drowning. I say, "I gave you $180,000, everything I had. We were supposed to build this together." She takes a sip of her coffee and says, "And we did build it. It's built. It's successful. You made an investment. Investments have risks." I'm staring at her, and I don't recognize this person. I say, "Is that all I was to you? An investment? What about us? What about our future together?" She looks at me, and for just a second something flickers in her face. Maybe guilt, maybe pity, then it's gone. She says, "Leonard, you're a nice man, but you need to understand reality. You're 65 years old. I'm 30. Did you really think this was going to be forever?" The words hit me like a physical blow. She continues, I needed capital to start my business. You had capital. It was mutually beneficial. I feel tears starting, and I hate myself for it. I say, so you never loved me? All of it was fake? She doesn't answer that. Instead, she stands up. She says, I'll send you quarterly reports on the business performance. As a minority investor, you're entitled to that. But I need you to understand that you can't just show up at the bar whenever you want. It disrupts operations. I'm still sitting, looking up at her. I say, you can't do this. She picks up her bag and says, it's already done, Leonard. The business is registered. The papers are legal. You should go home. This isn't your country. Then she walks out of the cafe. I sit there for an hour, maybe longer. People come and go around me. The waiter asks if I want more coffee. I don't answer. I just sit there. Eventually, I force myself to stand. I need to understand what I signed. I need legal help. I ask around and someone recommends a lawyer in Tagbilaran who speaks English well. His name is Ati de Leon. I take a tricycle to his office. It's small but clean. He's younger than I expected, maybe 40, and he has kind eyes. I tell him everything. I show him photos of the documents on Clarinda's folder that I managed to snap with my phone when she wasn't looking. He reviews them carefully. After 20 minutes, he looks up at me and his face is sympathetic. He says, Mr. Leonard, I'm sorry to tell you this, but she structured this very carefully. Under Philippine law, foreign nationals cannot own more than 40% of certain types of businesses. She registered this as a corporation with her holding 60% and you holding 40%. As the majority shareholder and as the Filipino national, she has operational control. I feel sick. I say, but we were supposed to be equal partners. He nods and says, I understand, but what you agreed to verbally and what you signed legally are two different things. The documents you signed give her full control of operations, hiring, finances, everything. You're entitled to 40% of profits, if there are any, but you have no say in how the business is run. I ask, can I sue her? Can I get my money back? He sighs and says, you can try. But litigation here is expensive and slow. It could take years. And honestly, based on these documents, you'd likely lose. She didn't do anything illegal. Foreign investment rules are very clear here. You signed these papers. There's no evidence of fraud, just a business deal that you didn't fully understand. I'm sitting in his office and I realize I've lost everything. Not just the money, everything. He sees my face and says gently, I've seen this before. Foreign men come here, fall in love, invest in businesses, and then discover too late that they don't have the protections they thought they had. I'm very sorry. I ask him what I should do. He says, you can stay and fight, spend more money on lawyers with a low chance of winning, or you can accept the loss and go home. I thank him and pay his consultation fee. It's money I don't really have anymore, but I pay it. I walk out into the hot afternoon and I feel crushed, not just by the money, by how blind I was. I sit on a bench near the plaza and I replay everything. Every video call where she cried, every time she said she loved me, every time she said our future. It was all a script, a performance, and I was the perfect target. A lonely, divorced man with retirement money and a desperate need to believe someone could love him. I think about my ex-wife, how she tried to warn me. You're vulnerable right now, she said when she heard about Clarinda. I told her to mind her own business. I think about my kids, how they said I barely knew this woman, how they said I was being stupid. I told them they were jealous of my happiness. I think about Rob, how many times he said, get a lawyer, get a contract, protect yourself. I told him he didn't understand love, but he understood exactly what was happening. He saw what I refused to see. I was so desperate to believe I could have a second chance at love, at life, at happiness, that I ignored every single red flag. The constant requests for money, the business being in her name primarily, the lawyer who never made eye contact with me, the documents I signed without reading, the fact that I was never really part of the planning or operations. I was just the wallet, the bank account, the means to her end. I sit on that bench until the sun starts to set. Then I make a decision. I need to see the bar one more time, not to confront her, not to make a scene, just to see it. To see what $180,000 bought. I walk slowly along the beach toward Sunset Dreams. It's evening now, and the bar is beautiful. The lights are on. There's music playing, something acoustic and soft. There's couples at the tables holding hands. There's laughter. The sunset is painting everything in gold and orange, just like that first night when Clarinda pointed at the empty lot and said this could be ours. I stand at the edge of the property, partially hidden by some palm trees. I can see inside the bar clearly. Clarinda is there. She's behind the bar, pouring drinks, laughing with customers. She looks happy, successful. And then I see him, a guy about her age, maybe younger, definitely not old like me. He's Filipino, handsome. He walks up behind the bar and puts his arm around her waist. She leans into him. He kisses her cheek. She smiles at him the way she used to smile at me. That same warm smile that made me feel like I was the only person in the world. My chest feels tight. I want to look away, but I can't. She says something to him and they both laugh. Then she looks toward where I'm standing. For just a second our eyes meet. I see something flicker across her face. Maybe it's guilt. Maybe it's pity. Maybe it's just surprise. But then it's gone and she turns back to the man beside her. She doesn't come out to talk to me. She doesn't send him away. She just turns back to her life. The life I paid for. I stand there for another minute. Then I turn around and walk away. I don't look back. I book a flight home for the next morning. I spend my last night in the Philippines in that cheap hotel, lying awake, thinking about everything. At dawn, I pack my single bag and head to the airport. The flight back feels longer than the flight there. When I land in Toronto, it's cold. Winter is coming. I take a taxi back to Markham, back to my small apartment. Everything looks the same but feels different. I've been gone 3 months total, but it feels like years. My kids don't ask too many questions when they hear I'm back. They're smart enough to know something went wrong, but kind enough not to push. My daughter comes by with groceries. She gives me a hug and says, "I'm glad you're home, Dad." She doesn't say I told you so. I'm grateful for that. Rob calls a few days later. He says, "You back?" I say, "Yeah." He's quiet for a second, then says, "I'm sorry, man." I tell him it's okay even though it's not. He says, "Want to grab a beer?" I say maybe next week. I need time. The days blend together after that. I try to get back into my routine. Morning coffee, walking to the library, watching TV. But everything feels empty now. Not because I miss Clarinda. I don't think I ever really knew her. I miss the hope I felt. I miss believing that I could have a second chance at something real. I miss feeling like I mattered to someone. One night, about a month after I get back, I'm lying in bed and I get an email notification on my phone. It's from Clarinda. The subject line says Sunset Dreams Q1 Financial Report. I almost delete it without opening it, but I don't. I open it. It's a professional-looking PDF, revenue charts, expense breakdowns, profit margins. At the bottom there's a note. "Dear minority investor, please find attached the quarterly financial report for Sunset Dreams Bar and Grill. As per your 40% ownership stake, your share of Q1 profits amounts to $1,847. Payment will be processed within 30 days. Thank you for your investment. Regards, Clarinda Santos, majority owner and managing director." I stare at the number, $1,847 on my $180,000 investment. That's barely 1% return. And it's probably the last payment I'll ever see because I know how these things work. The reported profits will get smaller, the expenses will grow. The quarterly payments will shrink to nothing. She'll run the business into the ground or sell it, and I'll never see another peso. I close the email and put my phone down. I'm not even angry anymore. I'm just tired. Tired and sad and older than I've ever felt. I think a lot about that night on the beach, that first night when she pointed at the empty lot and said this could be ours. How real it felt, how possible, how I stood there believing I was building a future. I think about all the video calls where she talked about our dreams, how she cried when I sent the first payment, how she said no one had ever believed in her like I did. Maybe some of it was real. Maybe in some small way she did care about me, at least at first. Or maybe I'm still lying to myself, still trying to find some way to make this hurt less. The truth is, I'll never know what was real and what was performance. I'll never know if she planned this from the first message or if it just evolved that way. It doesn't really matter now. The result is the same. I gave her $180,000. I gave her my trust. I gave her my hope. And she took it all. She took it and built a life without me. Sometimes late at night I go on Facebook and look at the Sunset Dreams page. She updates it regularly. Photos of happy customers, sunset views, special events. The business looks successful. She looks happy. He's in some of the photos now, the younger Filipino guy. They look like a couple, like partners, like everything I thought we were. I don't send her messages. I don't comment. I just look and then close the browser and sit in the dark. Rob comes by one Saturday with takeout. We eat in silence for a while. Then he says, "You doing okay?" I shrug. I say, "I'm here." He nods. Then he says, "You know it's not your fault, right? She was good. She knew what to say, what to do. She targeted you." I shake my head. I say, "No, it is my fault. Everyone warned me. You, my kids, my ex-wife, everyone. And I ignored all of you. I was so desperate to believe someone like her could love someone like me that I ignored every red flag." He's quiet. Then he says, "Loneliness makes us stupid sometimes. Doesn't make you a bad person." I tell him, "I'm $180,000 stupider though." He tries to laugh, but it doesn't quite work. After he leaves, I sit at my kitchen table and I do the math in my head. If I'm careful, if I don't have any emergencies, I have enough to live on for another 15 years, maybe 20. My retirement isn't gone, but my retirement dreams are. No travel, no adventures, no building something meaningful, just existing until I don't. I'm 65 years old. I'm alone, and I'm $180,000 poorer. People ask me sometimes what happened in the Philippines. I don't tell them the full story. It's too embarrassing. I just say the business deal didn't work out. They nod sympathetically and change the subject. They don't need to know about Clarinda. They don't need to know how completely I was played. They don't need to know that I fell in love with a ghost. Months pass, and the hurt changes shape. It's not the sharp pain it was at first. Now it's just this dull ache that's always there, like a bruise that won't heal. I think about her less, but when I do, it's with this deep sadness, not for what I lost, but for what was never real to begin with. I think about the man I was when I first messaged her back, lonely but hopeful, broken but healing, looking for connection. And I think about the man I am now, still lonely but without hope, more broken than before, afraid to trust anyone. That's what she took from me, not just the money. She took my ability to believe in people, my ability to believe in myself. Sometimes I wonder if she thinks about me at all. Probably not. I was just one step in her plan, one investor among probably many over the years. I wonder how many other men like me there are, how many other lonely foreigners sent her money thinking they were building a future. Maybe I'm the only one stupid enough to send so much, or maybe I'm just one in a long line. I'll never know. One afternoon, my daughter comes by to check on me. She makes tea and sits across from me at the kitchen table. She says, "Dad, I've been thinking, maybe you should talk to someone, like a therapist." I tell her I'm fine. She looks at me with these worried eyes and says, "You're not fine. You barely leave the apartment. You don't see friends. You're not living. You're just existing." I don't know what to say to that because she's right. She reaches across the table and takes my hand. She says, "What happened to you was terrible. That woman was cruel. But you can't let her take the rest of your life too." Her words hit me hard. Is that what I'm doing? Letting Clarinda take not just my money but my future too? My daughter squeezes my hand and says, "You made a mistake. You trusted the wrong person. But you're still here, Dad. You can still have a life." After she leaves, I think about what she said. Maybe she's right. Maybe I am letting this destroy me more than it already has. The money is gone. That's a fact. I can't change it, but I'm still alive. I'm still here. I don't have to let this be the end of my story. That night I do something I haven't done in months. I call Rob and say, "You still want to grab that beer?" He says, "Hell yes." "Tomorrow?" I say, "Tomorrow sounds good." It's a small step, but it's something. We meet at our old pub, the place we used to go after work for years before I retired. It feels strange being back, but also familiar, comfortable. Rob doesn't ask about the Philippines. We just talk about hockey, about his grandkids, about nothing important and everything normal. When I get home that night, I feel the tiniest bit lighter. Over the next few weeks, I try to build a routine again. I start going to the gym. Nothing crazy, just walking on the treadmill. I join a book club at the library. I call my son and ask about his kids. Small things, normal things, things that don't require hope or dreams, just showing up. I'm not happy. I don't know if I'll ever be happy again the way I was before all this. But I'm living. I'm here. And maybe that's enough for now. I still think about Clarinda sometimes. Less often now, but it still happens. When I do, I try not to get angry. Anger just burns me, not her. She's in the Philippines living her life, running her bar, probably never thinking about the Canadian man who funded it all. Getting angry about it doesn't change anything. What I think about more now is myself, how I got here, how I let loneliness cloud my judgment so completely. My therapist, because I did eventually start seeing one like my daughter suggested, says I was vulnerable, that Clarinda used sophisticated emotional manipulation, that I shouldn't blame myself so harshly. But I do blame myself, not for trusting her exactly, but for ignoring everyone who tried to warn me, for dismissing every red flag, for being so desperate for love that I confused business with romance. The hardest thing to accept is that she was never my partner. She was never building a future with me. I was always just the investor, the means to her end, and I gave her everything willingly. She didn't steal from me. I handed it over. One night I'm lying in bed and I finally allow myself to feel it all. The shame, the regret, the loss. I cry for the first time since coming back, not for Clarinda, but for myself. For the man I was who believed so desperately in a second chance. For the dreams I had of building something meaningful. For the trust I gave so freely. I cry until I'm empty. And when I wake up the next morning, something has shifted. The pain is still there, but it feels different, lighter somehow, like I've finally started to let it go. I make coffee and sit at my kitchen table watching the sun come up over Markham. It's early winter now, almost a year since I first messaged Clarinda. Everything looks the same as it did a year ago, but I'm completely different. I'm older, I'm poorer, I'm lonelier, but I'm also awake. I see things I refused to see before. I understand things I denied. And maybe that's worth something. Maybe being awake, even if it hurts, is better than being asleep and blind. My phone buzzes. It's the quarterly report from Clarinda again. Q2 results. My share is $892 this time, even less than before. I delete the email without reading past the first line. I don't need to see the details. I know how this story ends. The payments will get smaller and smaller until they stop completely. And then Sunset Dreams will just be something that exists in the Philippines with my money but without me. I'm okay with that now. Not happy about it, but okay. I made peace with the fact that I'll never get my money back. I'll never get justice or revenge. She's not going to suddenly develop a conscience and pay me back. She's not going to apologize. She's going to live her life and I'm going to live mine, and that's just how it is. Rob calls me later that morning. He says, "Hey, Me and some of the guys are going to a Maple Leafs game next week. You in? I think about saying no, about making an excuse. But then I say, yeah, I'm in. He sounds surprised but happy. He says, great, I'll get the tickets. When I hang up, I realize I'm almost smiling. Not because I'm happy, but because I'm choosing to show up, to be present, to keep living even though everything went wrong. That afternoon, I go for a walk. It's cold and gray, but I bundle up and walk anyway. I end up at the park near my apartment. There's a bench overlooking a small pond. I sit down and watch some ducks swimming. They're getting ready for winter, doing what they need to do to survive. And I think, that's what I'm doing too. I'm surviving. Maybe that's all any of us can do when life knocks us down. Just survive. Just keep going. Just show up for one more day. I'm 65 years old. I'm alone, and I'm $180,000 poorer. But I'm still here, still breathing, still learning, and maybe, just maybe, that's enough. I gave her my dream and she took it. That's the truth. The hard, painful truth. But dreams can be rebuilt. Maybe not the same dreams, maybe smaller dreams, quieter dreams, but still dreams. As I sit on that bench watching the ducks, I make a promise to myself. I'm going to keep living. Not for her, not despite her, just for me. Because I'm still here, and my story isn't over yet. The ending I imagined, the happy retirement with the beach bar and the beautiful partner and the sunset dreams, that ending is gone. But maybe there's another ending waiting, one I can't see yet, one that doesn't include her at all. I stand up from the bench and start walking home. The wind is cold, but I don't mind it anymore. I'm awake now. Finally, painfully, completely awake, and that has to count for something.